started. It's 3 o'clock. Calling this meeting to order of the Operations Committee today, August 10th. Bishop Fidrich, myself are in person. We have an echo.
I needed the computer. Did I do it? I shouldn't.
Stand by. We have one technical difficulty to overcome. Okay, it sounds better now, right? Yeah. So as I said, we have Ms. Trisha Fidrich and myself here in person. Online, I see Chairman Strubinger, Mr. Mel Campbell, and Mr. William Smith. Okay. So if we could go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Robert.
She did.
If it rolls over. Okay. Next thing is we need a fix it, Molly.
Try. Are you muted on
Yeah,
the
it's.
okay.
I mean, I didn't join audio. Sorry, we just have an echo here. Here. Can't hear my sounds it's just a little bit too. Everybody else has their audio off, right? Okay, it seems like it's better now, Molly. Okay, so we need a motion to approve agenda.
I move approval.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Chair, I move that the agenda with the following amendment to include AR SS 46 and AR SS 47.
Is that okay with you, Mel?
Yeah, second.
Perfect. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. So the agenda is approved with the addition of 2 ARs, which are just for information purposes only. No public action, no public comment or action is required, so it doesn't require any accident circumstances. Any public comments? No, you're echoing. I know. We're gonna. Well, it's just distracting. Okay, well let's. Do you want to try to go ahead, Wendy? Sure, we'll go ahead. Okay, so let's start with IS. Go through whatever order works for you.
So I will start with.
Can you guys hear?
Can you all hear who's
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, thank you. What we're going to do is we're going to start with SS 46. Andrew is here with us, and she's in the middle of a training with her staff. So, and Ms. Runner will tuning in. What we have done, we need to have completed before school starts, is we have new authorization for school prescription medication, school registration, and asthma. And then you just give you a brief overview of what it. We're going to have to translate it too.
So it already has a prescription medication form that was, this is one that's been out for, right? In speaking at the state, most of them are adding on this anaphylaxis, which is for dispensary and asthma, all right? And they have additional information that the nurse needs for their allergies. On the anaphylaxis, it's got spelling, H&R tightness, no, the abdominal, all of these things are on. This form also includes
It sounds horrible. Everything is echoing. You can't barely hear what she's saying.
I know you got it down.
I know, that's why we run to IT.
Someone needs to,
Molly went to IT to get someone.
yeah, we are having some audio issues here. Yeah, now it's
It
stopped.
stopped.
You know what, Will? It might be you, do you think? Because now it's stopped. Okay, we're just gonna go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sandra, keep
No,
going.
no, that's okay. So, this information for the anaphylaxis, it just gives also the ability to self-monitor, self-medicate. So the physician and the parent will sign it. These forms are actually used in several other districts. Greenville is the one that was so kindly shared this with, every district in the state. And I think many have now adopted it for their districts. The only thing we changed was I understand that my child will lose the privilege to self-medicate if he or she endangers him or herself or another student by misusing the medications. That is on this form. So, and it's also in our AR, so that the nurse has the ability, if the student is unwilling to do the correct thing with self-monitoring or self-medicating, that we can take it back and put it in the nurse's hands should we need to. We have never had to do that, just so you guys know, okay? Never, yeah. So we've never had to do it, but we're just making sure because we don't want any issues to happen to any other students as well. So this form just gives the physician more ability to give us more information and be able to quickly check it. And the nurses loved it because it had more information. And this pretty much mimics MUSC's as well. The asthma one is exactly very much in this very same format, but it gives us more ability instead of just do 2 to 4 puffs every 4 hours. This also gives them the ability to tell us if we need to do it before PE or a strenuous activity. Then we've got a sick plan because lots of times the kids are sick and they need additional medication through the day. So they can tell us, yes, you can give additional medication. Then the next one is a rescue treatment. And it says we observe the students for 20 minutes, of course. Now let me explain that. If we think that they are not doing well and their pulse ox is going down, we are not waiting the 20 minutes to call EMS. All right, just let me clarify that. If this person is doing well, their O2 SAPs are staying above 92, 93%, then we will keep them there for that 20 minutes and we will follow this plan. If they tell us, yes, it is okay to repeat the dose, we will repeat the dose. But when we're doing this plan, we will also give the parent a call like we always do because we're giving additional medication. The parent needs to know. And of course, for the anaphylaxis, that's an automatic 911 call if we administer the EpiPen.
So you call 911?
Always, every single time.
So just to clarify, it seems like the changes that we're making here to this AR is the addition of these 2 forms.
And we added the board policies too. So
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
But as far as like for
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Making sense.
all right?
Okay, and then the next one
Hold on, let's
is.
see. Oh, I know Ms. Under needs to leave.
Yeah, I know.
Does anyone on the board have a question for Ms. Under? Oh, for the nurse. Oh, is there another nurse one?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. We got another nurse one. Sorry. The individual treatment.
27.
And this one's just very quick. There's only minute, just because we're updating. We just added the superintendent's expectations. If we go down to self-administrating of medication authorized, we've just done assessment for elementary students. We'll be done with the school nurse and we'll be determined if the student is able to self-monitor or self-regulate. We just want to make sure that the district is covered with liability issues for that. Should the student be anywhere in the school or on school grounds or on the bus, that we don't want them to take out an EpiPen and show it and somebody, God forbid, gets jabbed with an EpiPen. All right. So we just added those, and that is the only changes that we made to
Board policy.
on this board policy.
Yes.
You don't have any questions? Any other board members have a question for Ms. Under before she needs to leave for training? Okay, seeing no hands. Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Ms. Sun.
Thank you for your time.
Come here and sit.
Appreciate
Dr.
it.
White. Thank you, Dr.
And Dr. White, our student service officer, thank you for being with us today. Dr. White is going to give us a brief summary of the ARs that we've been revising on alternative programs and our student discipline matrix. Thank you, Dr. White, for being with us today.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. As you recall, last year around this time, we did some updates to the matrix, the progressive discipline plan. And the same thing, anytime there are changes to the codes or some state regulations, we need to make sure that as a district, we are in compliance with that. So there were a few changes that we made. Some of them is just to align the language of some positions within the district as they change as well. We did some of those. We also made sure that when it came to tobacco and alcohol infractions, that required a mandatory referral to drug and alcohol intervention program for our students. That's very important that was in there. There was an updated definition of gang activity and what that is. We also included student intervention plan. We used to say truancy plan. We just keep that language consistent with what the state was using as well, and making sure that they go through the multi-tier system of support to make sure that kids are having the right interventions in place when they are truant. Also updated was the weapons definition as well. To be very clear, and I'll spend a little bit more time on that in a few minutes, and also added referrals to and reference to all that Title IX training and the new law that came out, making sure that when we have some infractions when it comes to sexual misconduct, that the referral is made to our Title IX coordinator as well. So those were some of the basically the major changes that we have made, and also when it, again, like I mentioned, the weapons, being very clear on what those are. Weapons other than firearms or discharge of weapons, really differentiating what those are and the levels of occurrence that occur with those as well.
And we spoke with the State Department, with Reed Coleman, who's in charge of the school safety. And we also added in where does a student discipline matrix apply? And under the School Safe Climate Act, it does, it's on school-related vehicles and official school bus stops. We added that cover matrices to cover that.
To make sure
we got it all covered.
And make sure that it says on and off school premises for some of the behavioral misconduct as well. And that's it for the progressive discipline plan as far as updates. Are there any questions in regards to that?
I did want to know what a student attendance intervention plan. So is that something new that is done by the social worker, or who is that done
So
by?
that's not new. That's always in the state law that says if a kid's been truant on this three consecutive or 3 or 5 days of absence, we must put truancy intervention plan. Yes, at the school level currently, that is being done by the school social worker, but it's really a team approach and not just one individual making those decisions what one of those interventions should look like, and the parent has to be a part of the process as well.
And that's after 3
It says three consecutive.
consecutive.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very tight, and it's always been the state law. I mean, ever since I've been, it's always been there.
No, I just found it a little confusing that multiple referrals will result in a level 1 referral. And then first, second, third occurrence, not to the third. I but I'm sure the assistant principals, because they're probably the ones that are mostly involved with this.
Which document are you all on?
I believe we're on the discipline matrix.
On one of them.
But I know that's part of the
Or 4
discussion.
of them.
Yeah. So it's just all
High
together.
school or?
I think we're
I'm
just
just
doing
in
it.
general what I
I didn't notice any big differences
No.
and changes between the fourth and.
That was mostly adding things to clarify.
Yeah.
Ms. Richard, what was that?
Well, I just want, just one of them would have been page 7 on early childhood, but I'm sure it's on all of them. So I just got a little confusing, but I'm
Sure.
probably me. When I was reviewing this last night, I saw something I just thought was a little about handguns. Okay, so you have, I'm on page 86. So you have infraction code 789, right? And then you've got subcode 781, 86, 85, 84, 82, and then it jumps to 80, 83, 89. So can you just explain? Like, so all this is new right here. Everything I've read, all this is new.
It's actually from educator handbook.
Yeah, so that's moved into the matrix, but it's something that we have in our, educators have put their input infractions in.
Because we thought it was important to have real specific subcodes in when we talk with the Department of Ed. Because it's 789 is weapons, but there's all kinds of.
Yes.
All kinds
Yeah.
of weapons and what that means, and also included was,
Yeah, you really got very, more precise.
yeah,
And I think I saw a Nerf gun in
I was
this.
gonna say, and now it
A Nerf
also
gun.
included Nerf guns. So
Right.
that was
We actually
that.
had a case.
About a Nerf
Yeah.
gun? Yes. And then you have a knife with a blade, and this is not new, but 2 inches, 2.5 inches.
Yeah.
More than 2, but less than 2.5.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I know that's the state.
It's a state,
Yes.
yeah.
I know the state's under 2.
Everything we have is really aligned with what the state puts out in
And the
the
educator
guidance
handbooks.
Do you mind if I follow up with?
No, please,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm trying to, I have this statue up, but it's under 2.5 is one category of infraction for a knife, and 2.5 and over. What's the difference? What's the 2 to 2.5 business? Why is that important? Why is that a third
More
category?
than 2, less than 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, that half an inch, what on earth could that matter?
Yeah, that's under their subcode 784.
Is
It's
it,
actually from them, yeah.
because I was looking, I was gonna pull up the subcode. I had, I wanted to bring this up because I had several situations actually this last year where people reached out where there was, in both cases, it was a drug search that a dog picked up on, and drugs were not found, but that is why the car was searched. In the car then, you find a knife in a glove box because the kid's a fisherman or a car mechanic or, it's, I have left butcher knife with a cake that I had in the back of my car. So what happened then was it immediately triggered, because it was over the 2.5, this expulsion. What is it? Less than 2.5. Parent guardian conference. But it was 10 days of OSS. Here it is, the last one. Conference, 10 days OSS, recommendation for expulsion. Lawful law enforcement was involved. And in both these cases, it was the high school, so local law enforcement was there because of the SRO. The problem is, for an incidental finding of a knife in a locked vehicle, it seemed like there could be a more sort of, let's talk about this kind of process, because a lot of parents got really upset. This is on my kid's permanent record. Law enforcement involved. They felt intimidated. They asked the parents to sign things. And I looked at other districts, and I could not find discipline matrices on their publicly available websites. I'm sure all districts have them. What I did find was note regarding recommendations. It said that there's a recommendation for expulsion automatically, but that does not necessarily result in expulsion. Hearing officers have the authority and flexibility to consider other disciplinary action based on the offense, age of the student, previous extenuating circumstances, totality of the incident.
So at the beginning of the progressive matrix, which you don't have in there, yes, it is at the discretion of hearing officer to look at all those things, and it's also that statement that we have, extenuating and mitigating circumstances.
Aggravating
So,
and mitigating.
and so it doesn't mean that it's automatic. All those things are considered. And when they go to the hearing officer and they have all those conversations.
Because in the state code, in addition, it's just, I think the process needs to be made, I don't want to say the word friendlier, but more sensitive to what the parents' impact is or the student's impact. So in one case, it was an honor student who had never been in trouble in his life, and it was actually his coach who reached out to me and said, this is crazy. The kid's been kicked out of school. The parents are in tears, and it was an incidental finding in the glove box because the kid he worked on cars. He had a knife and some tools in his, glove box. I also had a
And
situation.
that all got resolved, that.
It got resolved. It's just the process. This discipline matrix, it's like if you are, what if my son drives my car and I forget that I had brought a cake with a knife in the box, which I've done in the back seat,
Right.
and the dog inexplicably hits on the car, and now my kid's like dealing with the sheriff's office. Like, I think there's the things I think that need to be considered, and I'll know this is in the discipline matrix, but okay, how are we gonna handle that with the parents? When are the parents notified? Because a lot of them felt like they were the last to know, and the kid had already been through quite a bit. And then making them know that just because we're recommending expulsion mandatorily, there'll be a hearing. It'll, and if it's found that there was no wrongdoing, it's not gonna,
Right, so one of the things with this, and Dr. Scott doing this with schools, and that's why he's not here today, because he's actually working with APs this afternoon,
Okay.
and doing training, it's about that. We're
Yeah.
training our administrators. This is what it is, this is what it looks like, sounds like, and feel like. These are some of the things so it comes down to training and knowing that we have some new administrators as well. So that's something that's being scheduled and started with today as well.
Mm-hmm.
So having those discussions with our administrators, how do you interpret this? And that's why some of this, we try to make it a little bit cleaner too, so that administrators understand you still have the leeway, because one instance might say up to 5 days. Well, some of them don't see the up to, and might think it was just 5, right? And give them 5. So really from our end, understanding this year that we're gonna make sure that administrators understand how to interpret this and work with this as well, and go into the hearing. And Dr. Skaggs really review a lot of that information even before the hearing is scheduled, to make sure that these processes and these things are happening before they go to the hearing. And if we have to step in and clean that up with the schools, then that's the word.
And because when there is a hearing, the record is presented that if there is no prejudice discrimination, that's part of the record. If this person is an honor student, that's part of the record. Is this person a positive citizen contributor? I mean, people do make mistakes, so all that.
Yeah.
Because those are all mitigated circumstances.
apparently.
And the parents, and the parents are supposed to be notified that day. There's supposed to be a conference.
Yeah,
To
that's
deal with
something.
it.
Actually, they have 3 days to have that conversation.
Right.
Mhm.
Signed.
But they try to call them that day
Right.
and, talk about, let's get this going, because
So parent contact, the other thing is, when the child, because sometimes it can be 3 to 5 days before the hearing can be scheduled. How is the child, allowed to access their schoolwork? So that they're not, because that was another issue that came up, is that they've been out of class for 5 days and they're honor students and, it was a tough class. So is that piece being?
So that piece has been looked at, and for students with disabilities, it's understood they have to give the work, right? But we, with ISD talks about any kid who's absent needs to have access, or if they're out suspension, to their schoolwork, and making sure that they have access to that. So that's something we'll just make sure we.
right, and also they come back, they have the opportunity to make up too.
Yeah, so, but that's not written down anywhere. That's just sort of a training to a case-by-case basis to the various administrators. And so one administrator may have a different policy than the others. Because if I get this call again, I got more than one in the last year, I can say, here's what you as a parent have a right to expect.
Yeah, we have an administrative. group.
Yeah, it's an administrative. Yeah.
Is that the IS 60? Oh,
IS
different.
39 is for the, regular ed student, and then isn't it, it's 16, isn't it, for students with disability? That's 16, that's for discipline of students with disability. And one of the things Dr. White is making sure of is that in the event, unfortunately, sometimes a child has to be expelled, that child is continuing.
Student with disabilities.
Yeah, students with disabilities, that they continue to receive the services that they need.
Yeah, because that's the law.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. And you can make
And
sure
the
that that's implemented.
The final twist on this was also, and I was trying, I don't have the internet on my computer.
Oh,
The final issue on that statute, it says weapons, and it makes me like ninja stars and blackjacks, which I don't know who's carrying that around. But they also like metal pipes. Like, I think that there's a big gray area as to, I get a handgun and I get a knife.
Mhm.
Do we ever have instances where someone's accused of bringing a knife a metal pipe to school, or because we've got it by gun and then by knife and by knife blade size, and then there's this whole, nobody nunchucks probably.
No, that's actually from educator handbook.
Yeah.
And also the
So
criminal
it's-
code too.
Yeah.
It just bothers me that it's like metal pipe, because I guarantee you there's metal pipes in cars, and what constitutes metal pipe? How big does it have to be? When is it a weapon? When is it not a weapon?
It's the intent.
I guess that's the intent.
The intent is this can become a weapon really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's in there.
Okay. So as long as we have a fair process where parents are informed and there's some sort of a calming, I don't like the militaristic, you're out, we'll call you, don't call us.
Yeah.
No, we really are working on that.
And if I have that come up again, who's the right person to reach out to?
Dr. Derek Skaggs or myself.
And what's his title?
He is the director of student success, and he handles everything discipline.
Okay, good.
and alternative programs.
Okay, but David Grissom oversees like the SRO and the law enforcement, he's Dr. Seg. So if there's like
We
issue,
are all students, yeah.
so if there's an issue with the SRO being like, say, overly aggressive or saying things, I would reach out to David Grissom or Derek Seg.
Or both.
Not everyone.
Well, I think you
You're
could-
just, we need to know, I need to know.
He might give Captain Gibbons, but I go for Chris.
And you call me if it's a criminal.
Okay.
I just have one last
Yeah,
question.
please.
So, throughout the document, there's detention noted. Does every school have detention?
I think these are, remember, guidelines within to operate. Some schools will do detention and some don't. Just like, to get that done. And when do you have detention, right?
Intention in lieu of suspension. It's
In lieu
really
of
good
suspension.
to keep your kids in the building.
I agree, but I honestly didn't realize that with MTSS and everything that we even still
Right.
have detention.
And as we get better at our MTSS systems, we will see a lot of, we're trying to be more proactive to intervene than to be reactive. And that's the direction that we're trying to go, and even with this matrix.
Just having these interventions in place so that the behavior is not repeated and the
No,
students.
I agree, but detention means is that after school, is that Saturday, I mean, and one school does it, so since we don't have detention, then the kid's out for 3 days. But we do have detention, we can put them in detention. Do you see where that,
I see what you're doing, but
you know,
they all
it's
have
not
different,
consistent?
different ways. I mean, they all understand that they have these different options and what intervention and which one works best for that student at that time. So it depends on their populations and what they choose. And I guess if there's detention on Saturday, they have to have staff, right?
Exactly.
So, that is, and that's, like I said, we're doing training. Dr. Skaggs has done about 14 trainings already throughout the district between last week and this week. We're hitting all the schools and it's been teachers, and Karen McKenzie and I did also classroom management for teachers at Tier 1. Collectively together last week as well. So we're really trying hard to get them to see those interventions and be more proactive and move that way.
And tomorrow we have a meeting with the school resource officer.
Yeah.
And this is a quick question, the alcohol referral, is that something the school does, or do we refer them to outside drug and alcohol?
So we have, it's outside, but we have an agreement with them. We actually have the drug and alcohol and their skip program so that they can do too, even at Right Choices, we have a drug and alcohol counselor who's working.
Because those can be expensive, so we have, I'm sure,
So we
something
have
that,
an agreement with.
so any student that gets a referral gets that covered if needed.
Yeah, we have
We have an administrative
and a partnership with them.
Excellent. All right, any other board members have any questions before we move on to the discussion on the Beaufort High School entrance?
Well, one second,
Oh, there are
we
other
have
folks.
folks, that's a little quick.
So
I
think so
guess
IS
that was kind of related, so, okay.
So, IS-60 really looks at alternative programs as a right choice program, but the most substantive change was to our Promising Students program. What we did is we have Promising Students programs at Coosa, Willow Branch, Elementary, Pritchardville Elementary, and we met with those principals as we talked about how can we get really a lot better, got some input from them with the how kids can come to them and be referred. So this is based on some of that input. So just making sure that when a kid is referred to the program, that it is for chronically disruptive elementary school students who have repeated disciplinary infractions or those who commit a safe schools violation, because oftentimes we were seeing when the committee got the referral packet to make a decision about something, and it was like a first time offense, or there were not interventions going on. So we want to make it very clear that these things need to take place before you make that referral. So you're just not sending a kid out because we think that he's disruptive and it's a one-time event and it's not a repeated behavior.
So we're doing that in 3 elementary schools, Coosa, Pritchardville, and Beaufort L?
Low Ranch.
And Dr. White, could you tell the board about the changes in the public coordinator alternative?
Yeah. And then also you were saying to go with, we had a resignation at alternate program this summer. And so with that and looking for structure and how we can really support students and our students coming over to Right Choices, Dr. Skaggs as the director of student success is overall alternative programs. And now there's a coordinator of Right Choices who is overseeing the day-to-day programs. And that person is Gil Sanchez, who was an assistant principal in the district, who's now,
Gil or Gail?
Gil.
So these are our choices.
These are our choices as a coordinator. Dr. Reddick left this summer, yes.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, so what was Dr. Riddick's title? What was Mr. Riddick's title?
Dr. Reddick was Director of Alternative Program,
And so Mr. Sanchez is now the,
Coordinator of Alternative Program.
so how does that level and also support the program and in terms of position, in terms of support, when one is out? Because from my understanding that the Mr. Staggs is over BMSs and other things of that nature, is that correct?
Yeah, but with the BMSs is really getting them to understand their roles in schools and providing training. They still report to their principals every day. Then at Gil Sanchez, like any other administrator, then we will know ahead of time. And either myself or Dr. Sky, someone who has the admin certification, can oversee that. And we have a full complement of teachers there as well. As a matter of fact, we're fully staffed at Right Choices program this year. Like, yeah, and so that is all, we consider, Dr. Skaggs and I, with HR, took all of those things into consideration as we look and see what's the best way, most effective way to meet the students' needs.
Just to redirect, is there an assistant administrator there?
We have Dr. Skaggs, who's the Director of Student Success and a Coordinator of Alternative Programs.
So there's not.
That is the structure now. There's no assistant director.
Okay, so that's my question. So there's no assistant director there. Yeah, I'm sure at any point in time that staff can get called to other things we will have other meetings scheduled. And from my experience with Right Choices, that's a concern to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a concern, not to have a assistant director or assistant administrator, because if Mr. what's the guy that's from Beaufort from Battery Creek, if Mr. Sanchez is out, then that's a concern.
Okay.
I do just have a couple of questions, and thank you for explaining the coordinator. That's one right there. So, and I know this is not a change, it's just a question about what was already in there, but if you could look at Roman numeral 4D. Okay, and it talks about that a parent or legal guardian may appeal the decision of a hearing officer to the Alternative Placement Hearing Committee.
Yes.
Okay. Who is that? I mean, is that something, is that not new?
That's not new at all. I think years ago, so that would be Dr. Skaggs, and then we have an administrator. I don't have my names in front of me.
No, I don't have names, but I mean,
there is a committee that they would go to. So before it would be, say, they can appeal to me, but I'm just one person trying to make this. So the committee and having the varying viewpoints, but yes, it's a committee.
So at what point then, when the hearing officer has made a determination, because a hearing officer mostly is dealing with expulsion and things like that, right? So when does it then come to the board? Because we've had two come to the board. So, and did it go to the Alternative Placement Hearing Committee before it came to the board, these two instances?
I'm not sure, because I'm not sure if I was over, I don't think I was.
No, you were here. But
Overseeing, yeah,
right.
yeah, so I can't.
So I'm a little confused about that. Where does the board play in here?
The board comes in if there's an expulsion, but this, we used to have Mr. Bennett.
Right.
But we don't do that anymore.
Right, no, we hired the hearing officer.
Yeah, we have the hearing officers, we have
Right.
actually two, so. But this is with us.
You see what I'm saying? No, so the parent doesn't like what the hearing officer said. So then the parent can appeal to the Alternative Placement Hearing Committee, which I wasn't aware of, but that's.
But this is not about an expulsion, this is about an assignment to the alternative program, it's not for expulsion.
Okay,
It's not for
so,
expulsion.
okay.
So it's in the other regulation.
It's not for
Okay,
expulsion.
it's in the other regulation.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, this is not for expulsion, this is being assigned in
Okay.
eventually.
All right, and so then just the next one, thank you for that. So I apologize for wasting everybody's time. No, I thought.
That was good clarification.
Yes,
It was, yeah.
Because I really had not heard about that.
Can you tell me, elaborate where you are? Referencing?
I'm on Roman numeral 4.
On what page?
They're not numbered.
It's
Really,
IS
the second
60,
page.
IS 60, Roman numeral 4. At the very bottom, turn the page and go to letter D. So the next question then is Roman numeral 6, number 2, A2, 6A2. So the way I read it, and again, apologize in advance, do I read that if a student is at Right Choices, all right, that the students that are enrolled in CTE are able to continue these courses without disruption to include their homeschool or ACE. So if they're at Right Choices, they're allowed to go back to their homeschool?
If they're in CTE, they have that option that they still continue to do that, yes. So if you're thinking of you're really severe and fractions and stuff, obviously when they sit down for the intake meeting, all of this is discussed and they typically don't go out. What we can't do is say that they can't have access at all. We can't say that as a district.
I mean, definitely not to their core classes, but you can't. So I'm a teacher and a student has been sent to Right Choices, and then I see the student back in the building because they have welding at May River. I mean, just for example. And that's allowed, even though it's been deemed that the student should not be the general population.
And if that is deemed and he was placed there, then that would be considered. But let's take our kid who made a mistake of, say, vaping or drinking for the first time,
Right.
and they're on a student. And they have these kids and they are a 12th grader.
Right.
And have access. Can they have access to that? But it's all a case by case decision. Has it happened since I've been here? I've seen it. No.
I just find that interesting that a student could be deemed necessary to be removed from the general population, and yet it's okay to send them back to ACE or send them back to their homeschool for those classes.
So from their schools.
Right.
Fire and.
So anyway, that's,
You said that was mandated by the state? Or is that something, I thought you said?
So when you come, we have to work for all students, right? And we have to continue, all students, including students with disabilities too. And so if you remove those things and don't give them access to continue, that's where districts typically get in trouble. By having blanket statements that say they can't do it at all, or just ignorant. So it's really following along with the guidelines and what they allow us to do.
so what is our practice typically?
Our practice, I have not seen them down there since I've been here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very
What
much.
the overall practice has been, but
Right,
I
no.
understand.
I actually just go back to your because I have gotten some of these calls. Also, I've mentioned that before that when students get typically sent to Right Choices and the hearing officer says, okay, well they go now. I've seen instances like in other districts where they have emergency hearings basically based on what the hearing officer says. They give the right to go to Right Choices, or they suspended until the hearing. And I've seen where the school boards kick in, and the school boards come in and say, well, look at why is this kid even sent to us? And I've actually went in and sat on one of those hearings. They're generally open up. And so I'm just trying to figure out. So I'm trying to figure out too, like where are we missing that structure procedure at to give the communities their rights, because we can't infringe upon their rights as well. And versus what's the difference between them and that district and us? Because I've seen it, and also I've come to learn that as it was not just one district, it's several districts that is intended to happen.
I'm not following you. So what happened? I'm so sorry. What are you? Can you say it again?
So basically, once the students get Right Choices,
Get sent to an alternative program,
right?
right?
Alternative program, and then they go to the hearing officer and say, look, this is what you're going. The person will say, look, you're going to the alternative program.
Right.
Okay, so what have happened is they have put in for the emergency hearing, and in the point of the emergency hearing, then that goes to the board. And the board says, well, listen, this person here doesn't have merits. No, this person here does not have merits. And we will sit by the hearing officer, yes, this is.
So that's what this alternative hearing committee is. That's what we were just talking about.
Right. And my point that it is not an alternative, it's not an alternative hearing program. And I see that this where when it comes to that, the board kicks in, not an alternative program. So I mean, the alternative committee. So I'm wondering why we have an alternative committee and we're allowing someone else to kind of do the board's job here, or we're allowing someone else to step in and make a decision. Because rightfully speaking, 9 times out of 10, I don't care who you give an alternative committee, they are still in line with the hearing officer to some degree, because most of those people think alike. So you're taking basically one group of people and they still have the ultimate decision versus getting a outside or a board decision. So I kind of
Can I answer just because that was basically my question in a way. I mean, you elaborated, but so the board would be involved if the parent appealed to the board about an expulsion. But this is not an expulsion, this is an assignment to right choices. And I, for one, do not think the board should be the decision maker as to whether a child goes to right choices. It should definitely be, because that's not an expulsion, it's just an alternative placement for a period of time. But if you're telling a child can no longer come back to school out of the school district and the parent wants to appeal that, I see where that comes to the board. Isn't that basically? Yeah. So is that?
No, but actually, that's not a problem, because there was a kid where this kid, his whole life could have been changed because he would be going from, he was that stage they were just talking about. And he could have been that kid that had that knife. And once from him being responsible, from him going to an alternative school, no matter how long, once you're there, you did, that's on your record. So therefore, the question becomes, should this kid even be placed there? And that decision comes because after every action, there's a reaction. And so therefore, now, once again, the board gets the lawsuit, not that committee. So the board should be in position, because those people are elected to represent the community, to make a genuine decision right then, based upon what they have, and the board has attorneys. So that's why the board is making a decision versus a inside committee group or a group of people that is put together by district staff.
So I think what Mr. Smith is saying, because this is just for information purposes, the feedback from Mr. Smith specifically is whether or not the board should have a role in alternative choices when we think about these ARs, but there's no action to come out of this. So I think that Mr. Smith, your point is understood and noted.
Well, it's not sure it's really about it being noted. It's about really, I would like to know where do we go from here, because being noted just means that you've been heard, and I said that these are the ARs. But I would like to kind of have a clearer.
Then what we need to do is have an action item at some point on alternative placements for schools and how that's handled. But that wouldn't be from this AR. So we can do that as a future topic for another operations committee meeting.
Well, I would definitely have that as a future topic.
We'll do
so
that.
I'll totally.
All right.
Yeah.
Does that conclude our AR?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Right. You're welcome. Thank you for principals meeting.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've got a few minutes here to dive into the Beaufort High School entrance.
Okay, I'll kick it off. How about that?
Please do.
If you remember the last operations committee meeting, we discussed this, and the same documentation that came from the county facilities committee is being provided again. This shows the options that they discussed, and just to I guess they were looking at options 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And there had been some discussion between their committee chair, and I believe Ms. Boatwright is the operations committee chair, about wondering what our opinions were on 4 and 5. We sent the letter to the county stating that we had concerns, and we suggested that they address our concerns as, the board approved that and sent it on. And that's where we last left. One of the things, I believe Ms. Boatwright asked to see kind of what the area looks like. Freddie went out there and took a video of it. This area, of course, is the, what they call the Geechee Road area, which is in between Beaufort High School and what used to be the old theater, which is now a warehouse storage building. Do you have that? Or
Let you share your screen.
Oh, you share my on the spot.
And just as a point of clarification, while he's sharing his screen, they also want input if we have ideas on other, it's not just 4 and 5. They also say if we want to recommend something else, we can, or talk about it.
And can I just, so the engineering recommendation, right,
Be consulted.
says 3 and 4. So this, I've been thinking 4 and 5.
No, it's 4
but
and 5.
It is 4 and 5, but even though this says 3 and 4.
Yeah, because I can't remember why, I'd have to go back and look.
Okay.
They decided to move off of 3 because of the impact to Crystal Lake. Or the Crystal Lake.
Okay.
Somehow it jogs slightly.
I think this was the presentation that they gave at that meeting,
Yeah.
but in result.
Was 4 and 5.
It's 4 and
Want to
5.
make sure, okay, because I thought it was 4 and 5.
Only
and I
difference,
just saw
I think
that.
that they were recommending this
Since
general
it's a
structure for having slightly less impact on Crystal Lake, and so that was, 4 was good, and then people liked the idea of 5.
Okay, thank you.
And the part that we are concerned about is not the Crystal Lake Park area, but the,
Well, that's not true, but
well,
I
from a
understand.
school perspective.
Under our
I think,
purview.
yeah. Because the difference between 4 and 5 is different than how it is Crystal Lake. Our little 90-degree angle there stays the same either way.
Well, in any of those 3, 4, and 5, they all impact the area that we're concerned with.
Right.
So from my point of view, the issue for us either way is that little 90-degree angle.
Yes.
You see what I'm talking about?
No,
We'll get, we'll watch the video, but see this is different on 3, 4, and 5, but this part,
Molly,
the impact of the school is the same on 3, 4, and 5.
see there?
You need me to show the video?
Yes, please.
Okay, you sent me 3. Should I just go through them in order?
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Freddie, I'll let you explain what you're trying to show here.
Okay.
Can you see one?
She shared her screen with Molly. Molly, do you know if you've got the rights to?
Yes, I was opening them all up so I could just do them one at a time.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
She's hacked into Freddie's TikTok account.
You have a few videos.
Okay, so this is
All right, so actually where I am right now is I'm right past Beaufort High's light. I made a left-hand turn onto Geechee off of 21. So I just drove my truck all the way along the fence line. This is Geechee, but it changes on the other end.
You're humming.
I was humming, sorry. Turn the volume down, Molly.
Can you say anything like, I can't believe I have to do this for this stupid committee?
So this is actually not on our property, right? Up to a point.
So to the point, I'm gonna come up right now to Beaufort High sign. It was muddy too, y'all.
You should definitely submit reimbursement for the park.
So here we go. That's the back of the theater right there. If I turn to my right, I'm going to Beaufort High's driveway.
So this would be where their road begins.
Yeah, because they're trying to fit into this, into our essentially entrance, right?
Right. And that's the on.
Right there is actually a sidewalk where you see those posts between the fence line. That's how it goes all the way down for the Eagle Walk. Well, I don't think anyone uses it, y'all, because there's a lot of debris on it right now. But she will switch over to another video. Here's she on the opposite side. I just want to show you that sign there, and then we're going to walk all the way through in that next video.
That's the student parking lot.
Right.
End of the student parking lot.
And then right between the football field there, is that
Right.
like
So
in
you see the
corner?
green writing here. I'm going to pass by the Geechee sign again. to the Beaufort High parking lot, it's gonna be on our left. We go straight across, we're going to Geechee.
This would be where the traffic, or just down would be where the traffic circle would be.
So here's where they're talking about directing all this traffic.
Right, straight through here. That might be good.
So Robert, this is this section right here, right?
So when we get right,
Does our property go all the way up to this road?
That fence right there, if you see that
Is it the
fence.
fence is the
that
edge
was
of
the
the
fence
property?
right on. Yes.
So there's room there for them to put that road.
When I walked from that sign, Robert, was it the sign I walked from? I walked 75 feet.
So the probably in between our property line and the warehouse was about 75 feet.
Okay.
And a typical, they say they want a 2-lane road with a pathway. I mean, the minimum needed is 55, 65 feet. So they would have to be 10 feet off that warehouse if they don't impact the property. And they'd have to get all that from the warehouse property. If that's their plan, that's what they haven't told us. And there will be some impact, no matter how you do it, on the curve that would tie that into our property. So we're gonna lose, let's just say they can get it all on the warehouse property. Then there will be a little bit they'll have to take out of our property as you make that curve into our drive. And my concern has always been as well is that if that becomes a busy road, our stacking length of cars that are waiting to drop people, because once now you're backing up onto what could become a busy road, and that's a concern as well.
Yeah.
and it creates a lot of traffic. So when you go back to the green pavement there, that's where the students, the football team, the band, everyone walks out to the football field. That'll create a lot of traffic right in that area.
Well, and where you showed that sign, we said that's the Geechee Road,
Yes, ma'am.
that's where they have their 90-degree angle, right? Where they want to put a connection down to Yeoman's Drive. Is that Yeoman's?
Yep.
So that's going to bisect right between all that.
That's right.
Do you have a video of Yeoman's Drive that you're coming to?
Yeoman's Page all the way to Meridian.
It is, but Yeoman's is 2 roads. So when you come off of Meridian, Yeoman's, and then it turns into Yeoman's again when you make the left-hand turn. And you're going around with a circle, was it a Circle K gas station? I guess.
Oh, yeah,
It turns into Yeoman's again. I didn't know that until I was driving it.
So it goes Yeoman's, you turn left on Geechee and right on Yeoman.
Right.
Yeah, and you come out by that dry cleaner. That
Right.
used to be a dry cleaner,
Mhm.
right there in the gas station, yeah.
Mhm.
So Robert, let me ask you, so talk about Geechee now. You said between the end of our property line, which is that fence, and the back, and where basically the warehouse is 75 feet.
Approximately, yeah.
So you think that they would have to take land from the warehouse to get what they want?
If they're not taking it from us, that's who they're gonna take it.
Because that's where, okay, because it's, you said it's 75, you need a minimum of 65,
It's roughly 75. I counted it off by steps.
Yeah, somewhere in the 75.
but you're not talking about the whole 65. Who owns that little 75-foot swatch right now?
That would be the warehouse. That would be,
So the warehouse owns all the way to our fence.
yes.
Because that Geechee Road is a blue sign, doesn't that mean it's like some sort of county road?
Yeah.
Yes, that's back at the other end. So, and that's what, unless there's some old county, like there's the county drive comes to about here and stops.
About where? Halfway?
Yeah, you see the end of where those properties are developed. So it pretty much comes there, it stops.
Okay.
And you'll see down here where it's got Geechee Road called out, but there is no right of way shown. Like that part he drove on 70 is not our property and is not a right of way according to county GIS. Now unless they've got it somewhere else saved and they're not putting it up as a right of way.
But one concern too is that is deep in the neighborhood as well.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, that is very problematic. So now you're gonna have our kids walking through neighborhoods, coming to schools, and you have parents dropping them off in the neighborhood. That's part. I don't know if we want to indulge in that.
I'm in agreement with you, Mr. Smith. I'm not disagreeing. I think we need to know all these details, and you know that they know what their traffic counts are that they're anticipating. They need to tell us that.
What do they expect the traffic to
be? And do they plan on putting all this on the warehouse property? Or are they talking about taking some of our parking to Beaufort High? And if they're talking about taking on parking from Beaufort High, how much are they talking about? I mean, those are the kind of, to me, information that we need to know.
Why don't they use Yeoman's Drive all the way out to 21?
Didn't they say they had some kind of agreement with the people from Meridian?
No, Meridian, they supposedly have an agreement with people in Meridian to not put school traffic on there, which I don't, unless it's in writing, I'm not super interested.
Well, kind of the interesting thing, we own, on that one, we own Rue du Bois. Mm-hmm. Why in the world would we own Rue du Bois if they did not from Meridian? So Rue du Bois is this road right here.
Why do they use Rue du Bois?
That's entirely owned by the school district.
So why don't they give us a ton of money?
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know why we bought that road. And if we did, we had to buy it to tie in from Meridian.
So
But anyway,
they want to build a road instead of using a pre-existing road. That's what keeps stymieing me.
Right.
Dollars and dollars.
Right.
Why?
Oh, Mr. Earl Campbell.
Yes, I sit here listening, and it seems like each time we keep going over the same thing. Why not ask the county and the consultant to come to a meeting and explain all this?
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is ask them to come to a meeting. Request that they come to a meeting, because you're not going to get anything going over this over and time and time. This is not going to happen anytime soon anywhere. Because I've attended many of those meetings. You need the consultant there, and you need somebody from the county to answer your questions.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that we need to get all the parties in a room and make the consultant answer the questions that we have. So Robert just left, but one of my questions is, and maybe Mr. Lund, you know some of this too. So we don't like 4 and 5, right? Because they're going to bisect our property there between the football field, and also they're going to be running an unknown amount of traffic down this road.
Robert?
I thought Mr. Lund was back there.
I'm just talking, she has a question and
sorry, okay, go ahead.
No. I was just, Mr. Campbell made the point, I think a very valid point, that we need to get the county and us and the consultants in a room, not us like us, but the district, the county, and the consultant, and have that conversation and get them to answer some questions.
Yes, that's what I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. That's kind of what we were hoping to come out of this, is just to let the county know that we cannot support anything without these questions being answered.
Would it be, so I guess so on that topic, I know that the Public Facilities Committee is meeting again on Monday. Should we ask them if, for us to come? And I don't know how that would work.
Well, if you remember, what we gave them our letter.
Yeah.
Do we get a response?
Yes.
From Paul Somerville, and then the informal responses.
Well, and yourself, what your response from Stu?
Yeah, he said basically, look, yeah, he's inviting us to the table. I'm not sure how to put the table.
Well, and his question, Stu specifically, was which one do we support, 4 or 5? And that's where, to me, the answer is we can't support anything without our questions being answered.
So there's two ways to continue this conversation. One is we need to also talk about what other alternatives we do like. What would we want them to do, right? We don't like 4 and 5. Are there any of these alternatives or something that you know about that we would be in support of?
I think that's putting him on the spot, because of the fact that he said something, he and I have said something, that there's too many there's too many unanswered questions to submit anything, because once you sit in the comments and say, well, basically we asked you the question, and based upon what you told us, you said you supported 4, is which way we started to go. So at this point, I don't think that there's not enough information. There's too many unanswered who, where, what, where, and why, and the hows, and some of these packets is that that needs to be answered before we can move forward with anything. I believe that's what we're at. I believe that's what he's trying to.
Well, I would put that
Say.
to the staff. I don't disagree. I would put that to the staff and to this committee to say, at this point, with the information we have at hand, is there any of these alternatives we'd be more in favor of, or should we just say, look, we can't support anything and do anything until these questions get answered? Mr. Mel Campbell, I don't know if you're driving across. Do you have any?
I said we don't.
Just wait to get the questions answered.
I'm driving, but I'm listening, and I don't have anything to add to what's being said. I mean, until we know what we want, first of all, out of the alternatives, and which one is best tweaked to our specification. Well, I don't think we have I don't think we have an alternative other than to have everybody in the room and airing out the concerns and see what's possible.
Mr. Earl Campbell? Oh, no.
I'm sorry, I should have put my hand down. But
No, but I think if we're still talking about what you brought up, which is
but because from the beginning, I attended all those meetings with the consultant was there, the people from the county was there, people from Ladies Island was concerned about certain things. And we are not going to get any answer by talking amongst ourselves. We need to have them at the table.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying.
So since they're meeting and they're discussing this and they tabled it and they could vote on it on Monday, I mean, I certainly plan to go to that meeting on Monday. Do we want to have, Mr. Rodman suggested having our staffs, that sounds funny, the district staff and the county staff get together and have a discussion before Monday, or do we want to just go to the meeting? Do we want to invite them here? This is where I feel like I am new to the protocol of Beaufort County.
Well, I don't think there's any protocol when dealing with county council, because, I mean, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but I mean, but I don't think there's any, we haven't figured out that dance yet.
Okay.
On how to exactly meet up, other than, maybe when we've done a few times with the officers meeting, or, with their officers and so on, but, Robert, to put you on the spot, if you had to choose one of these alternatives, which would you choose for the betterment of the school district and the safety of the students?
Putting me on the spot, the one that they've thrown out was the original, has the least amount of impact on.
And which is that on this?
You'd say it's the non-numbered one, which is
the original ground zero.
Which was the original 2017 Ladies Island Corridor Study, which goes through the
shopping.
So that has no impact on our property. And I can guarantee you they can do it right up to our entrance and we can function exactly the way we do today. So in my mind, with no impact, that's the best alternative.
But that, so just.
Is it the safest? Is it the safest route, Robert?
Well, the reason why it's the safest is there's not a drive-through. Pretty much Beaufort High is the end of the road. You're going to Beaufort High and you end there. There's nowhere else to go after that. So.
But it's not achieving their goal of trying to traffic.
Now you need to mute. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was my question, because we asked them that in April of 2021. And while this is called the Beaufort High School Traffic Realignment Program, which I think this will work, it does not achieve any of their goals of doing another quadrant cut through.
Right. They're looking for how to do connectivity, how to give alternative routes. Yeah, their goal is completely different now.
Which right there says they're planning on putting a fair amount of traffic into the school envelope. Okay, so I do think that there is a chance that they could take a vote on it on Monday, because they were going to vote on it last time and they tabled it to get more information. So we have Thursday and Friday. Do we want to see about getting together with them before that meeting? Do we want to just have a presence at their meeting? Do we want to send a sternly worded list of questions?
I don't think that a story word of list of questions is gonna do it. I think we need to be all in the same room, understanding and digesting this information, in the messages of the district and also, our constituents. I think that possibly either I think possibly having a scheduled meeting would be more meaningful than just say that we're going to basically go to their meeting and inject ourselves and,
We got 2 days.
There's not enough time.
They did say, I think the meeting was 23rd or 22nd.
Oh, good, because he said Monday, and I thought it was next Monday, but
Fine, see if I can
so
find
if
it.
we have next week, then we're in much better shape.
I mean, that's the problem, is it's hard to get the two groups.
Well, and if we have a meeting, we have to post it publicly and all that, so we have to have that option as well.
So their meeting was moved to the 22nd.
Perfect. So, Robert, my personal thing is I'd like to attend the meeting. I don't have anything to contribute other than complaints and concerns, and questions. But it really is the district staff and the county staff need to have a meeting prior to with the consultant. Would you agree with that?
Okay.
Tentatively?
Have you
Yes.
not?
Conditionally?
Not in about 2.5, 3 years.
Maybe we should have.
So we did early on in the process, but we have not met.
Maybe we could have a joint public facilities committee, operations committee, facilities meeting next week with a consultant there.
I think like Mr. Earl Campbell said, it's the only way to get it done.
Exactly, that's what I think that would be conducive.
And I can present that to the full board on
So they
Tuesday.
joint meeting, joint.
Well, invite the facilities committee to come here to, and invite the consultant, find a time where those three entities, this committee, their committee, and the consultant can come and we can have a discussion prior to the full board meeting. Well, I mean, prior to being brought for a vote, sort of an information gathering meeting. And then they'll have theirs on the 22nd. I can present it on the 16th to the full board so that the full board can weigh in. I think Mr. Stribinger's still. Chairman, do you have any, if we were to propose next week having a meeting with the consultant, the operations committee, and the county's public facility committee to get these questions answered, would that be a reasonable course of action from the full board's point of view?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My only caution is make sure it's the full committee. Don't meet with just Stu Rodman.
No, it's the full committee. And I would invite, anyone else from the board, as we always do, that wants to come and participate. I wouldn't limit it to the committee either. So, okay. So
we could try. That sounds like a big challenge, getting all those people together next week.
Well, what I would say is
Sarah and find out what their availability.
Find out their availability, and then what I would say.
We only have the 18th and the 19th.
Right. My other thought is if they say they can't do it, that we should recommend to them that they not vote on it on the 22nd until we have an opportunity.
So you have the opportunity. Yeah, I agree with that.
And I can, we check with them and then I'll check with Sarah.
I can reach out to Jared Fralick's county to say that's been our suggestion. That's something he can help coordinate.
Okay, and then I know we talked about a list of questions.
Yeah.
My glasses. Oh my God, I feel old. We have the list of questions. So what I would also recommend is that we have an opportunity for any questions to be submitted, that we have something to work off of. You've got your list.
Yeah, I don't mind. Let's go ahead and say that out loud so everybody can, if they have any comments. The questions that we wanted to ask were, what are the impacts on the school's drives? What are the impacts on the schools right away? In other words, what land are they asking from us for? And then the third is, what are they anticipating the traffic impacts to be on that road if it's right in front of the school? So to me, those are the three questions we need to answer, or that we asked before that we've never had answered. So I can take those to Jared, and if anybody has any other questions, I'll let them know what those are.
Okay.
Or if anybody wants to rearrange or doesn't agree with those, let me know.
No, I thought those were good ones.
I'm sure more will come up, but that'll capture it. But I do want to make sure that anyone who's not in this meeting can submit a question if they have it. So, all right, should we have a motion that we take to the full board that we want to set up a committee? Do we need it? The chairman's here, he can let us know. All right,
Well, I'm gonna have to go ahead and if there's any chance of us getting together next week, I gotta go ahead and reach out. I'll
Yeah.
let you know that.
reach out and see.
And
if
if some reason y'all don't support it, then we'll just cancel. But yeah, we'll go ahead and.
No, we were trying to get information. I don't think we have to.
Yeah.
So I think the actionable item coming out is that Robin and Robert Ani are going to reach out to their respective counterparts to see if we can get that set up. And I can send an email to Stu Rodman saying that the full facilities committee and the full operations committee want to have a joint meeting prior to the 22nd. And the only dates we have available are the 18th
And why is that? Why we only have
Because we got a full board meeting on the 16th, we got
We have a
operations on the 17th.
Correct.
We got that.
And what are the
And we can't do
times?
during morning? Can't do morning?
I could, yeah.
What are the
With the
times
morning,
on the
I mean,
18th?
I think it's asking a lot to say, can we meet next week on these, either one of 2 days? Just-
So, I mean, so if you want to meet in the mornings, what are your times so that we can meet within options? So, and which days would be mornings and which days would be anytime?
It's super important. The only time I cannot meet is Wednesday. Because I have to report to the board. Wednesday
And
morning.
Wednesday, we have operations at 4:00.
Right. But I can do it in the mornings.
We can't meet on the 16th in the morning because we're meeting on Hilton Head and we need the time to get over there to get set up. So the 16th is not a time that we can meet.
Sure.
You all want to meet on Monday, the 15th? Today, considering today's Wednesday, that might be. Otherwise, you have back to the mornings on the 17th, anytime on the 18th, and any time on the 19th.
Okay, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
you know, just.
Yeah, just throw those dates out there and it's, we can make it work. If I mean,
See
that's up
if
to you.
any bites.
So that's the plan then is okay, so we don't need anything to go, I'll report that out to the
It'll have to be a special call meeting.
Yeah, it'd be a special call meeting for us. Okay. So no action as far as a motion, I'll just make that report to the full board on the 16th. All right, Battery Creek here?
Yep.
Yes.
Sarah Hayes is right behind you.
I felt like there was somebody.
It is me, Sarah.
Sit here.
All right.
Yeah, sit here. I'll slide over and you can sit here.
Awesome.
How's everybody doing today?
Yeah. Oh,
Doing all right. Oh, man.
She got a beautiful new building.
It's craziness over there right now. But yes, the facilities, we are definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so today, I am requesting the naming of 2 of our facilities, on Battery Creek's campus. We felt with the referendum and being able to build some new facilities, that we would go ahead and we could honor some of our coaches that have made a huge impact on the Battery Creek community, a lasting impact, and just leaving a legacy on our community. I see that everybody has, I believe that the letters that I've sent in. I have some other copies of it. So we request to have our new wrestling facility named after Coach Mark Nathan Day. And then our gymnasium named after Mr. Joseph Strowman. So I'll start with Mr. Mark Nathan Day. He's just a legendary wrestling coach in the state of South Carolina, not only at Battery Creek, but just the state of South Carolina. 6 state titles. He is the coach at our school, and with that program that has the most state titles. He was at our school for a good bit of time, from 1986 to 98, 2011, 2017. And he made a huge impact with those wins. 11 region championships, 30 individual state champions. And like I said, he's admired not only in Battery Creek, in the Beaufort community, but also statewide. He also coached the NCAA national champion. That was a wrestling coach that we had at one time, and he also coached him. Unfortunately, about a year ago, he passed due to illness. And we just felt that this was a great opportunity to honor his legacy, at our school, to name that new wrestling facility after him. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I I fully support this. Having been in the district almost 20 years, my 2 kids in the district, Coach Day is legendary. Didn't go to Battery Creek, but still we all knew him at Beaufort High. Numerous letters from Coach Drafts. There's a letter from yourself. I believe I saw one in here from former principal and the current, was there a current principal? Denise Cox. Yeah, past principal. If this was all I could, but I think she might have been at the SIC.
Yeah, we did, we went through the process.
Right.
We, took it to our SIC unanimously. Yes. And because we had been getting support letters up to that point, and then still somehow, for that. So.
Okay, so, do you want to talk about Mr.
Yes,
Strowman? And
yes.
then I have a couple questions about the process.
Sure. So Coach Strowman, also another legendary coach, at Battery Creek High School. He was in our school, I think, from when Battery Creek opened. He was my basketball coach. He taught my parents. He taught my aunts and uncles. But why the gym? Because he coached football and track, but why the gym? Because he's won 2 state championships with the girls basketball team. His overall record was 253 and 126. His career spanned 4 decades. And I often, because I'm in the community, I'm from Beaufort, I graduated from Creek. I'm often in the community and I have people coming up to me asking, Coach Hayes, when are we going to do something for Coach Strowman? When are we going to do something for Coach Strowman? So I felt, or we felt, our school felt, that this would be a great way to honor him also with his legacy, because not only has he made a mark on the girls basketball program, the football program, and track, he's made a mark on the community. Like I said, he's taught several generations. So I'm sure everybody in this room probably knows somebody that might know Coach Strowman. So that's why we wanted to name the gymnasium after Coach Strowman.
All right, so my question, Mr. Bush, do you have any questions? Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions?
Well, I fully support those nominations. I know both of those coaches, and I know Joe Strowman personally. Battled him quite a bit, and I'd say that those legacies are well documented in terms of the history of Battery Creek. So I support them.
And also,
I'm hoping they're vetted it fully with the rest of the Battery Creek community before bringing it to us. But yes.
Okay. One of my questions is, I see that Colonel Geyer and Denise Lassard are both listed as members of the SIC. Are they allowed to be the members of the SIC? The principal and the school board member? At large?
Oh, what's the other term?
Ex officio.
Ex officio, there you go.
Okay, so, Will, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I thought that I was wondering about the process that, I know Mr. Day is passed on, but, Mr. Mr. Strowman is still alive. I thought that we were not, dedicating buildings to people who are still living, or how does that work?
Adjunct facilities, as I recall in the policy, can be named after living or deceased individuals. Naming of brand new schools cannot be named after a living individual.
I just don't want you to I just don't want you to go through the process and that question to come up. Right. I want to go ahead before we even get out the ground. Make sure that we have those out.
I think we discussed this at the policy meeting.
Right, but like I said, before we get anyone excited, I want to make sure that we air it out first so that we're transparent with everything.
And I guess, is the policy now, did we get clarification, are they doing a second reading of the policy? Is the policy in effect at this point, or is it the AR that's currently in effect still one? which is not good. It's a kind of a side conversation.
I was not at the last meeting, in this last meeting, and
Okay, so it is in effect. Yeah, my only concern with this one, I think this is.
Let me clarify. So the one that we just brought to it, the one about naming, the new one that came out of policy has to go through its second and final reading.
That's what I was talking about. Which one were you talking about that's in effect?
The only thing we have is the AR.
You're right. Right now, the only thing is the AR. We did not change the adjunct. We didn't change that at all.
so it was my understanding that, we're still operating under the current because, because we not discuss that as a full board, so that would not have even had a first reading, and we know that we have to then, so I think we're still operating under the current.
Well, it was discussed in the last meeting, so it had for.
Right, so it has to have another, because it was never discussed prior to that. And I would think, anyway, the school community and SIC were operating under that which is published, and therefore it should be that which we adhere to.
Well, I have to say, Sarah and everybody's done a great job putting this together. So I think she's covered all her bases except one on her new policy, which is current students.
Oh.
So, I mean, if you.
No, you're supposed to have a student on the SIC. Is there not a student on the SIC?
We have students on this.
Oh, then she's covered, in other words, if she's a student on your SIC, then you've covered your entire policy, even if it gets published, because she's gone to the community, she's gone to staff, she's gone to the SIC, she's gone to students, and that's what new policy says would be required.
No, I think this is a gold medal presentation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I think it's right in the middle of approving. I want to make sure that we don't do something wrong that then gets to be. So I just was wanting to dot my i's and cross my t's on that.
If they have,
Mr. Earl Campbell?
Yes, I just want to say that the community has been working on this for years. And I don't think there should be any issue about delaying this.
That is good to hear. That's good to hear, Mr. Campbell.
Okay, so we need a motion to, I assume.
Motion to recommend to the full board.
Yeah, a motion to recommend to the full board.
Approval of Battery Creek's request to name athletic facilities after Coach Nathan Day and Coach, is it Joseph Strowman.
So the Battery Creek Gymnasium after Mr. Joseph Strowman, and the new wrestling facility after Mr. Mark.
My question is just, and when are you planning to bring this before the second reading, or
We'll bring it on Tuesday, the 16th.
This is a board motion.
Motion to recommend to the full board the approval of Battery Creek High School's
gymnasium after Mr. Joseph Strowman, and the new wrestling facility after Mr. Mark Nathan Day.
That's the full name.
so I think even, that was my point, is that even if the second reading of your new policy is at the next meeting, what she brought meets the intent of even your new policy. So I think you're fine.
I still want to approve something as we're doing a second reading if there's issues that still have to be the same. So
I think you've got your bases covered.
Mr. Mel Campbell, are you up for seconding that? I'll second it. Okay. Since Mr. Mel Campbell's temporarily unavailable, I will second that motion.
Did he mute himself?
No, yes. Oh, he went away. Okay. And Mr. Earl Campbell, is your hand still up for a reason, or just to make sure you don't have anything else to add? I'm going to assume that he was pretty definitive in his comments. So I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Excellent.
Two in favor. Oh, and there's Mel. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks for bringing this to
So, so we're going to bring this forward on Tuesday in Hilton Head. Are we meeting in Hilton Head?
We're in Hilton Head.
Is Mr. Strowman going to be able to make it? I don't know if he's.
I can ask.
I mean, I don't know if they're naming.
Yeah, I know. I can ask him.
He'll be there.
You think he'll do that?
I think that
Sure.
he can definitely zoom in too,
Right.
and have him, if you
And
can.
have
Okay,
Kim-
I'll let
and
them know.
have Kim zoom in.
And have Kim
Okay.
zoom in.
Okay, yeah,
That would be great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Have a celebration.
Right.
Awesome, well, thank you.
Oh,
Thank
thanks
you.
for bringing this forward.
Okay, we are all ready for, is it construction update, guys?
We are next.
Right, that's the next thing, right? My lost line.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Construction update.
there, give me a second.
Hit it.
Ready?
Yep. Take
Good
it away.
afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the August 2022 executive summary for the construction projects with the data through the end of July. As you can see from the report, it's been a very busy summer and we continue to be very busy. This month's report includes 87 pages, and inside of that material, there are updates for 33 referendum projects, 66 8% capital improvement projects, 3 HVAC ESSER projects, 6 bipolar ionization projects, district-wide bottle filler projects, and not to be forgotten, 6 food service equipment improvement projects.
Now we gotta be.
Good. Are you singing? Get rid of it.
You can turn it off now.
Meeting.
Take a while for me to get that done.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
All right, so continuing on, long lead times and cost increases continue to be encountered due to supply chain issues, current market conditions, and inflation. And to that, to address those concerns with market conditions and inflation, and the inflation that we've been experiencing is the highest level that we've seen in 40 years. The board did approve use of $31.1 million of bond at July 12th board meeting. These funds will be used to provide the additional funding that's been forecasted that's needed to complete the remaining referendum project scopes. These bond premiums, as you see, if you open up our contingency log, they'll be tracked separately. I've got a section that's at the bottom. The intent is let's use all of the original bond referendum contingency funds first. And once those are exhausted, we'll start tracking against these additional funds coming from bond premiums. Inside of the report, Robin, if you'll go forward to slides 5 to 7, you'll see in there again this month concerns yellow traffic lights for Battery Creek High School associated with the ongoing concerns for various material delays that are listed on slides 8 through 11.
Join the meeting.
Slide there is for the electrical switchgear delivery concerns at Robert Smalls that we've discussed previously. And the last one is on slide 20. This is the 8% project that was planned to be done out at Hvac Island. The scope of that work was some paving, but the whole solution was to do it hand in hand with the county. And like so many entities, they've been challenged with their budgets, et cetera. And for the time being, they parked it. They do plan to revisit it, as I've been told, towards the end of this year, first of this year. And hopefully they can put that back on go, and then we'll work with them collectively to do that paving that's needed at the Hvac Island. If we go forward to slide 56, Robin, pause there for a second. I wanted to share that in there is those 2 renderings that we've been speaking of for the gym out at St. Helena Elementary. You see the top option is option A, that's the entry vestibule and canopy, and then the option B is just the entry canopy. The construction manager is going to provide us GMP proposals for both of these options this month. We'll review that, and then it is our intent is to bring both of those to the board in September so that information can be shared and vetted with the board to see if there's a preference to proceed with either of those options. Mr. Smith, while you're out of the room, I just was talking about the St. Helena Elementary slide 56, those are those two rendering options that we've been speaking of recently for that gym. So you'll see that those are on there. Proposals are coming this month, and we'll review them, and then we'll be bringing that to the board in September to see what the preference is to move forward with one of those options. Okay. All right. Project closeouts, talk a little bit about that. We do have all of the FY 2018 8% capital improvement projects closed out.
Before you go on, those two proposals on 56, are these actually the proposal or pictures of other proposals?
Those are renderings of what the construction documents contain. It's easier to see a rendering than the floor plan and elevations. I think it does a better job of conveying that information. But yes, that's the two options that we've been discussing, and that's what's being priced this month.
And just asking because this is something, the second option B, which is very small in this picture, it does not really look like much of what we when I initially had the meeting with the people on say Helena, doesn't really much gives it. It's like it's just something just to throw together to be an option. It doesn't really like what was promised to the people out there when this was when this option was offered. So I mean, I'm just a little concerned about that versus the option A with the canopy. It was more in line of having and more inviting, and it doesn't really from this smallest maybe because it's the smallest of the picture, but it doesn't option B doesn't really to do that same justification.
There is a difference, as you're pointing out, between the two options. Option A has that entry vestibule as well as the canopy.
Right.
Because of cost concerns associated with it, we had discussed bringing in a second option. That second option is option B. That's just the entry canopy, so that we would be able to have two different solutions to evaluate, consider, and once we get those GMP proposals this month, we'll know, what kind of a figure we're looking at for each.
Right, and I'm just hoping that my colleagues will be open to the fact that we're being fair and sensitive and objective to all people, to all the kids need across the board, because what we do for one is we will attend to want to do for all in terms of funding, and the funding is not that that we found funding in the past, and I believe that we should go find the funding here too as well. So that's just so I'm not worried really as more about funding as some others may be, because of the fact that we fund other projects that have been less more popular than what this right would cost us. So we'll put that in mind. Thank you.
So to that point, I want to make sure that no truer words were said, that we are equitable across the board.
Right.
Because this is an elementary school.
And
please don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, this is an elementary school.
Right.
All right, we're already dealing with tremendous cost overruns because of inflation. So until we get the GMP, it's going to be really difficult to give any real determination, because it could be that one is astronomically out of our reach. Okay, it could be that it's within reach. So I don't know that right now we need to be throwing out, let's make sure that we're all being equitable, because if we're equitable, I don't know what other elementary school has option A. What other elementary school has a vestibule leading into their gymnasium?
And just,
is there one?
Well, just to respond to it, also, this gymnasium was given us, we as a district, we have not hardly put any money in terms of building this facility. So this is a facility that has been in existing within this existing. So we hadn't put it. So we looked at in terms of being equitable and be fair to the objective. We built other facilities here. We hadn't built. We're remodeling this facility to get it to where it's feasible for that community. So weighing the balance, I still will go with my same statement because it still holds value, it still holds weight.
Right. So we all have to
versus paying nothing versus paying a whole million. I'm sorry. No problem. Somebody, you fine. I don't want to say. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But no, paying something versus not paying anything is just a little different there. A little tweak different. Thank you.
The GMP will be in when?
We're supposed to receive them this month.
Okay.
Once we receive it, just like we do always, we'll go through, make sure that if we have any questions, we get them answered, any corrections take place. And our intent, schedule wise, is to bring this to the board in September.
Okay.
Moving on, continuing with the conversations on project closeouts. The projects for FY 2018 have all been closed. For FY 2019, 8% capital improvement projects, we have 5 remaining projects closed. Referendum projects, Robin, slide 76 to 77. You'll see that we've got information for tracking 23 of the referendum projects that are listed there. 10 of those projects have been completed and closed out to date. There are 3 in there that you see with the traffic light being yellow. Those 3, we do have the final payouts and they're in the process of being processed for payment. We do continue to review this on a weekly basis with PMs. Financially, referendum financial expenditures now through the end of July now total to a figure just under $150 million paid to date. The figure is $149,855,717. And the last item that I'd like to share is on slide 86. That's the community outreach. We've provided some updates to the various activities on the Hilton Head Island Middle School and Hilton Head Island High School project for what's been taking place. You'll see the meeting that we had earlier this week, yesterday, with staff out at the middle school. But the one thing that I do want to bring to the attention to everybody is that we finally do have the groundbreaking ceremony for the middle school, coordinated, scheduled for August 31st with a start time of 2 p.m. So that concludes my executive summary. See if there's any questions.
So that's a Wednesday at 2 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll go to the calendar, but I think.
And what time does school get out?
Well, 3:30 for the high school.
Right, but I think what it is that the school wanted to have students participate at this and that time facilitated.
Excellent.
I can't imagine parking is gonna be a big issue, but yeah, traffic's gonna be a nightmare.
We just need to be out of there by, we need to be done by 3.
Yes, yeah, and we need to figure out where people are gonna park.
We'll have signs up and try to facilitate.
It's just that bottleneck right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Mel, do you have any questions?
No, what did we anticipate?
Huh?
What are you anticipating?
Just tons of people. No, I'm just saying, like, it's there's. I don't want to park in the road, and it just because there will already be people lined up. Because what time does the school get? The elementary school's at 2:45, So you want people parking, like blocking people, and there will already be quite a few cars lined up.
That's right.
So there's parking down the swamp lot, but then you have to walk.
Maybe a golf cart.
Yeah. Okay, so my question, and I am beating the drum on the Hilton Head stuff, right? Because that's what I know. My kid goes to school there. I'm there all the time. I know people there. I talk to people there. I was trying to go back and find the gym bleachers were supposed to get done this summer, among other things, right? They didn't. That's fine. The gym bleachers, there was a measuring issue. They have to reorder them, supply change. It's not going to get done for a while. But then the only thing that irritates me is that we don't put a yellow traffic light. We just moved it to the next phase. And so what concerns me is that's the one I know about. But I don't know, you're like, we have 3 yellow traffic lights. Maybe. I mean, I just don't know if those yellow traffic lights really provide any value.
I'd like to think that the yellow traffic lights still provide a purpose and a function for where the concerns are ongoing. You see the 3 that we had with the material deliveries. Those haven't resolved themselves yet completely. But once we know that we've got a shipment for like the HVAC equipment, right now we are seeing very lengthy times. Once we acknowledge that that has occurred, then we come up with a game plan. We go back to the school, we talk to maintenance, our energy manager, make sure all of them are informed of it. And then when we have the new solution for the schedule that can actually, be made, that's what we're trying to do is let everyone know through the green light that, hey, that's all been coordinated and it's moving as best it can.
Well, and then, so I did manage to pull up here, so my computer was a little slow. So and I'm not specifically targeting Hilton Head. I know I come across as it's one thing I care about, but it's what I know, right? So I'm looking, the GMP for athletics phase B2 scope was supposed to be in early July. Now it's coming in, I think it says in September in our current documents. Is that not an ongoing concern that we just can't see? I mean, what's the delay on these GMP proposals? Is it supply chains? Is it inflation? Why is that? Why do we seem to have so much trouble and take so much extra time getting just the proposal?
The challenges are yes to everything you get. It's the simple answer, but yeah, the CMs are competing with the other work that's out there. The trade contractors are spread very thin. Electricians are very high in demand. But at the same time, we've got the material pricing that's shifting, but more importantly, it's the latest information that's coming in from the material suppliers that are having, call it a ripple effect, that, you know, if I begin the work and start, and I originally thought I could get it done in this window here, as I calculate my cost for general conditions, for putting a superintendent out there to manage it, et cetera. Well, when he hears a day later that, oh, the update coming from the HVAC manufacturer is that it's pushing it out by 2 or 3 months, then they have to go back, figure out the resource loading. So it's been challenges, but I believe that this is the most accurate information that we have as of today that, you know, reflects when we think we'll get the actual GMPs. And yeah, and I'll be the first to share also that we have had a GMP that's been received, for example, last week. And a day later, the contractor called us back and said, I gave you a guaranteed maximum price, but I'm no longer feeling comfortable because this moved, that moved, and you know, we don't want to put somebody under contract that then struggles to perform, but at the same time, once I got you under contract, I want you to move forward and execute.
Okay, and just so I don't come across as always complaining, I will say we had a nice presentation at Boys and Girls Club. Got a few parents to show up, just trying to generate some interest off the usual group of parents. Got a little bit of it, but I appreciate very much Mr. Audie, Carol Crutchfield, and Tim Summers. Yeah, and made a nice presentation. So I appreciate the effort that is ongoing to involve the Hilton Head community in what's coming.
Now, look, if I can say, in thinking about it, your point, you know, on 2B, they had the gym bleachers are behind. We probably should change that to yellow. It's fine.
I understand what you're saying. Like, that's not something, I mean, it's been decided, right? So it's going to be done next summer. So it doesn't, it's just hard for me to know if there are other delays that are just not, you know, coming in. But
well, the good thing, and here's the thing, like the gym bleachers, the thing was we caught it before we did any demo. So it has no impact on the gym because the bleachers that are there and they're still fine. There's nothing wrong with them.
so in the ongoing dialogue between your role and my role, when I tell people we're getting bleachers this summer and they show up and they go, what the heck? I thought you said we were getting bleachers. I have to say, no, but don't worry, we didn't do any demo. We just have, you know what I mean? Like there's just a community.
It would have been a bigger deal if we'd done demo.
Oh yeah.
It would have been a massive, and we were close. That's why.
Yeah.
And that's what just before they did demos when they caught the fact that there was an error in some measurements they took out of the order.
Yeah, it's just a big difference between engineering and quasi politician type.
Yeah. No, I got you. You know,
don't tell me something that's not
and
achievable.
that having that as a yellow light would have pointed that out too. So yeah, that's why I'm saying, yeah, okay.
Because what I'm going to hear about
we
back to
may
school
have
next year is, do we have the radios? And my answer will be,
the BDAs are still about a month out.
I think it was on this one.
Okay.
Robert requested a report and I've got all the PMs responding back.
You may
to get a consolidated one to you.
I heard that they were
I think
starting.
them still needed to get.
Well, they haven't, it's within the month, I guess.
Okay. Any day now.
A month out is an easy thing to an easier deadline to meet.
I'm just trying to maintain my credibility.
Well, credit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our world now in construction is crazier than it ever has been.
I agree.
And it is extremely hard to meet deadlines.
And the role of parents is also, and constituents is very sort of like, but anyways, I agree with you. I'm just saying that's the difference. I'm not trying to make a point over the engineering aspects. It's
And we weren't trying to gloss over that. So that's, yeah, and I get your point. We need to definitely highlight those things that are changing.
It's better for me to get in front of, we're doing it next summer, not this summer. We've ordered the wrong load, whatever it is. All right, so I don't see any other questions. I think that's all we need from you, Mr. Sorry. It's the two Robs, Mr. Corbin. Body just stuck in my mouth.
I'm always the Rob, he's the Rob. And I would assume that at the board meeting next week, Tuesday, you would like me.
Yes, we had a construction presentation.
Quick question.
Well, yeah, because of the fact that we didn't meet last month.
Yeah, and we've been focused on.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing that, so I think you usually make a motion to make that happen on Tuesday.
Yeah. Do we need to make a motion to bring out?
It's just.
It's auto now.
Yeah.
Quick question also, at Liaison Elementary School, in terms of the playground, there was a couple pieces that was not there yet. Where are we at on that?
Is that the one that has the flat work finished, but the delivery of the equipment has ship date that's still a few months out? Do you know which slide that was? Did you see that, Mr. Smith? So I think.
No, it actually just began to jog my memory in my venture in terms of looking at.
I know it's in there.
So is that slide 54? See the next slide.
I'd say I do not know off the top of my head. So
Now, Ladies Island Elementary project, I'm thinking of the other one when I told you about the flat work. According to slide 54, the playgrounds at Ladies Island Elementary School are reported as completed. You see the first bullet point, playground equipment installation is complete, and HG Reynolds has already begun to assemble the closeout documents. So that work should be completed now.
But on the back side of it, when I was out there, when the time I was out there, the bottom piece was way almost concrete hard versus the other side. They were definitely different layers, and there were some concerns out there. Maybe when
were you there?
Probably right when summer was out, probably right at the beginning of the summer.
So we did a lot with the summer. Yeah, I think
okay. Okay, well, I would definitely check back out there and
right, because if it had been completed previously, for example, this would have been no longer in this as a completed for this month. So this is reflecting that in the month of July that completed. So I think you got that, but I'll follow up with my project manager and make sure that it's finished. And
I will give it to him. I forgot what his name is.
Augustine Vargas.
Yeah. I will give it. He's very professional, very good. And he's very consistent about body work. I will give him. I must say that. When Mom said when you give people the good, you give them the bad. When you give them the bad, you give them the good as well. But no, he's very professional. I do appreciate his.
Thank you very much for those kind comments. I'll make sure that I pass them along.
All right. All right, we've had all the appetizers. We are ready for the entree. Bring on the facilities report.
Do the introduction. Do we have Kevin Kelly online?
Yeah. You sure do. And I didn't know I was an entree, but I'm good with it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. Well, I will introduce. Is Sarah with you as well?
We got Sarah and David Thompson and Nick Phelan.
Okay. So, well, I will hand it over to you then, Kevin, and let you do the introductions and start us off.
Alrighty. This is a follow-up to when we did the pilot projects with you. And what we did was we went ahead and put together your final facility condition assessment. And the first couple of pages are, I know you guys didn't take an Evelyn Wood speed reading course and got all of this digested since it got issued to you this morning. So I'm just going to give you a little brief of what we got, how we put it together, and then that will kind of lead you to how to read your way through the document. by all means, this 163 pages is nowhere near the amount of documentation that's been incorporated into Cartograph utilizing Envision. So you have somewhere close to, I'd say about 2.5, 3 terabytes of data available to you.
So if I can stop you right there, let me just, so there is one piece that we are still missing, which is a roofing piece that's based on our software had some communication issues. So when that is resolved, we can print out the book and give them to Robin to give to all of you so you can all have a printed copy. We didn't want to print now and have to go back and reprint later when that issue is resolved. So that's where we are with that. Sorry for that. Go ahead, Kevin.
So like I said, the first few pages of the document are really just an executive summary of what we did, how we did it, and pretty much the methodology of where we were at. And if you don't mind, Robin, could you go to page 9? This is your breaker page. Like I said, the first one talked about what we have and how we did it. This is broke down into 3 categories. The 3 categories that we broke this down in are based off of the input we got from you during the pilot review, and plus the long painstaking endeavors you took with the fiscal year 24 8%. So you'll notice that we give you the district level summary, which is the next page. And as Robert mentioned, the roofing is not included in there. So this dollar value that you're seeing there, once that's incorporated in there, then you'll be able to see it. Now, this is all broke down based off of the categories. And this is the overall executive summary. And then we have on page, let's see what we got here. Page 11, that's this one, which is the one that talks about the brief description. And then if you drop all the way to page 108, I'm just reading off the sections to you. This will give you the yearly cost by category. The categories that we based this off of are the exact same categories that you guys went through and created when you did your new and revised way of moving forward with your 8%. So you'll see that as it goes through. Now this particular one is a long document. It'll take you all the way down to page to the final of it. But if you want to just see how the cost summaries are broke out by each facility, they're in there for you to be able to pull it out. So we tried to break it out into 3 different sections so that you could review it based on that. Now, some of the things that are not in here, when you go back to page 10 and you see that the roofing's not in there, a couple other things that are not in there that are typically things that you would be looking at in your operations department are like the technologies, band, tree trimming, FF&E, vehicles, things like that. So I didn't expect to get a lot of questions. I just wanted to kind of get the document out there so you could see it and get a chance to overview the whole document and then feedback on how we can make this better for you. And then one clarification on this particular page, because I know it's going to come up. You'll see where it says fiscal year 24, and then you'll see where it says current need. What you just approved for fiscal year 2024 is still in there. It's work that has not been accomplished yet, so it's a forecasted value that needs to be done. Does that make sense, Robert?
Yes, and also just the current need is what they're saying is work that already should be done. In other words,
now
it's a backlog of stuff we should be doing right now.
Yes.
Even though we've been out and done probably a lot of different school districts and stuff like that, I do got to pass an accolade on to the operations department. The team that went out there with us were all in awe of how well maintained a lot of this equipment that is well beyond its normal life cycle has been maintained. So that's a kudos to your operations department, your maintenance department across the board. Because we were seeing things that, as you can see in the current needs, those are things that either their life cycle has been exceeded by a minimum of 2 years and should have already been replaced, but through the abilities of your maintenance department, they've got them still running. And then also you've got in there, like, I'll take flooring, for example. Flooring has a life cycle. Carpet has a life cycle. VCT has a life cycle. We utilize the install date and the industrial standards as to what the replacement years should be for that. A lot of this has gone beyond its standard life cycle, and you can see it in the wear and tear just from going up and down the corridors and stuff like that. The other one that's a huge number in there is your mechanical, your HVAC systems. I will tell you that a lot of the HVAC systems we looked at and things like that are beyond their life cycle. You are addressing a lot of that in this current fiscal year and in next fiscal year, but it's a tip of the iceberg. A lot of the things we were seeing were beyond life cycle, and they had got to the point of replacing compressors and fans is not the fix when the framework and the housings are deteriorating along with it. So we made sure to notate that on your reports and stuff. I'm pretty sure that covers about where we're at with that, with the exception of retention ponds. I'd like to bring that one up for you, because retention ponds, typically there is not a life cycle of a retention pond, but because you do have retention and detention ponds, one of the things that was requested by the operations department was to give you a feasible, realistic maintenance cost for the ponds that you do have. And that's what this is.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I hit the mute before I said I'm done.
So, do you want to take questions at this point, or do you have anything to add?
Well, I guess the only thing that Kevin kind of went over some of the things that are not there. Also know that it does list the schools that were included. So not all schools are included in this as well. If you'll remember, the schools that were having major renovation work and or are scheduled to be replaced were not included in this list.
Or the new schools, like.
Or the Robert Smalls.
Robert Smalls,
May River.
May River, River.
Right.
We're not
I
included.
think that was back
How
on
many
page
schools
8.
total were there?
They are listed.
Yeah.
Oh, she's got it.
No, I don't know if it was. It was here it is. It's on page 7. Sorry.
Has to count.
Are you referring to the ones we did do?
Yes.
That's probably page 8. With the only thing missing from there are the 3 pilots. This was to be, but they are in your report. They are included in the final report. But on that particular page 8, it tells you who we did, what schools we did.
Well, they list the ECC, so 29 out of 36.
So the adult ed was not done. Yeah, I did that.
I think you've got district,
maybe
it's
it's
not
not
actually list them out, but
Adult
some of the
ed was-
district facilities were assessed.
Yeah,
Okay.
district
This
office.
building, the maintenance building, the annex, and I think adult ed.
So at what point will May River and River Ridge come on and become part of this program? Like how old do they have to be?
Well, I mean, they can come on at any time. It is something that we will need to put into our 8%, and they are in our 8%, but right now, for the most part, all you're seeing is paint and things of that nature. So May River right now is 6 years old, and this was a 10-year replacement cycle. You start to see roofing, you will not see in that 16 years. HVAC, you shouldn't see in 16 years. That flooring, you really shouldn't see in that 16 years. So maybe hot water heaters. But when you get 15 to 20 years, they need to be included.
So that's, sorry, I don't want, but that's maintenance, like replacement. What about like damage? If there's casework that was vandalized or there's,
Well, that's not really the purpose of this. I mean, yes, they're looking at a building in general, and there may be after 15, 20 years, you know, they're looking at percentage of casework that's good condition, poor condition, fair condition, or should be replaced. There may be onesie twosie things at May River, but you would expect a building that's 6 years old, let's just say, that the casework's in good condition. And if it's not, then it hasn't lived its lifespan.
And if onesie gets broken, it's gonna go in as a maintenance request.
Yes.
Hopefully be repaired.
But you're not gonna replace the entire building's worth of casework.
Correct.
At May River.
No.
If you are, that's a problem.
How we just keep up with like.
That's just a
Principal.
maintenance, that's a maintenance item. That's onesie twosie repairs and maintenance.
Ms. Fidrich, Mr. Campbell? Do you guys have questions?
Who's managing who's gonna manage the trend of, you know, let's say something has been sustainable, you know, at an inordinate pace, and something is falling apart district-wide, flooring, instead of flooring, is sustaining a lot more or a lot better than we anticipate. But the air conditioning unit is not. Who's managing that kind of trend? What's consistently happening?
The question he's asking, the one that deals with whether or not you have a particular, and I'm going to use HVAC, that has repetitive problems?
Yes.
How's it being tracked?
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, you utilize School Dude. School Dude has the capability of giving you that history by just doing a couple of algorithms inside of it.
Yes, but I'd also say that's also the benefit of having maintenance and construction within one department. And the project managers that we do have do get involved in the maintenance and construction. And like JD is our energy manager, he would deal with maintenance items and big construction items. So when you talk about HVAC, yes, as Kevin said, school day tickets track it. When we go to ask for HVAC units that need to be serviced, and also if we're looking at new schools and the type of HVAC units, we do ask maintenance, what are your next 5 years that you see are the units that need to be replaced when we're looking at 8% projects? If we're looking at schools, we do talk to maintenance about these are the kind of systems we're bringing in. What are your thoughts on those? And then JD, who's over maintenance, would be in both those conversations as well. So by having maintenance brought into the conversation of 8% and new schools, you're getting that information about what's working, what's not working. So that, in my mind, that's how that's resolved, which also, as Kevin said, those school due tickets are part of that. That's how maintenance may look at their 5-year plan. Where are they getting the most work tickets and repetitive work tickets? And those are probably the units.
And one of the other things I'd like to bring up is something that you can't see on this report, but Carolyn and the team have all put this in there. If you have such an item like an HVAC and it's a repetitive issue, and you can go to that particular school inside of Envision, and you can see who the make model is for that, and you can pull off of that record, oh my gosh, we got a problem with this particular type of unit, and it's a repetitive one across the district, so you don't spec that anymore.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. So you fine tune the specs and you're gonna get the right quality stuff every time.
So from our discussions, this is sort of an introduction to this document, this
Correct.
database.
Correct.
Because I haven't really had a chance to look at it tremendously in depth. And it'll be used as you go forward this next year. We'll talk about it more in terms of 8%.
Well, we'll be glad to come to the next meeting if you want and open a discussion after you've had a chance to look at it. If you want to have a question and answer session after we're able to print out the books and get it to you. But yes, this will go into the 8%. You know, and if we're looking at referendum projects and where you're focused, it could be looked at, used for things of that nature as well.
Well, one thing that struck me was we have $52 million immediate needs that should be replaced now. And then $148 million total, right? So that is not something 8%. We cannot manage this at our current level of $25 million a year at 8%. So I know that coming in the start of the new school year, it seems like this would be an appropriate place to kind of tie this into.
Page 10, Robin.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
What are we going to do about the referendum? How is this going to impact the planning for the referendum? And so that to me is like the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this is we should probably be using this to say, here's a look at what, you know, the amount of money that we need. We can't fund it at 8%. You know, should we be using this to plan for the next referendum, which I think is probably on the horizon.
Or what parts of it are something you need to focus on? Where are shortcomings, you know, whether it's mechanical, whether it's roofs or paving or whatever, what are we having problems meeting just 8%? Yeah.
So my thoughts are, given this document, given the $52 million and $148 million and all this different stuff, is that this might be a good place to say, let's ask the superintendent to start looking at these things and planning the projects for the next referendum.
I do too. I think that once we get the roofing report and maybe just have a little Q&A about this at our next meeting, then I think that's a fabulous idea. I mean, that's, how do you perceive this being used?
Well, what I kind of get.
Exactly as y'all are talking about, building the next 8% project list and building and looking at it as far as what our needs are when you're looking bigger picture at a referendum and for starting that conversation. When we start the conversation.
Well, that's the thing, right? The other dance we do. Who's doing it and when are we doing it and who's forming it? And so that was my thought, was looking at this document and saying, okay, let's bring to the full board the idea that it is time to start, even without the roofing report, we've got more than 20% project or 8% projects could possibly handle.
That's true.
And I love the idea that we're starting school, summer works, you know, coming to a conclusion. You know, knock on wood, we're going to have a relatively normal school year. Would this be a good time to bring out of operations committee something like, let's ask the superintendent to start looking, using the FCA, using the other things, start looking at planning the next referendum. So I don't know if you guys would find that interesting at all, or if you want to wait till the roofing's in.
Well, if I recall, this is a $600,000 study. Was that 600,000? Yeah. So when you guys look at this, you're looking at some pretty darn good information that you would not have had otherwise. Is that correct? And how often is an FCA done?
The last recommended that an FCA be done anywhere in the 5 to 10 year range. That's just based off a uniform and APPA and Council for Greater City Schools.
14, right, or something?
The last big one we had done was in 2007, and we had a roofing, and I'd say a FCA done about 2011, but it was more an ADA assessment of our buildings. So we really haven't had anything. The biggest one we had done was about 2007, but we had some pieces done in 2011. Say that is the latest. So we're well over 10 years of having done this before. Right?
Yeah, I think the last even piece of part we did, retention funds and
stuff. We've done
and
some small stuff, yeah.
15 or something like that, but we haven't done much of anything. 15.
So just my thought process of all that is this absolutely has to be utilized for, I mean, this is information. You know, the community group for the last referendum brought in a lot of community-minded, kind of, you know, subjective, some objective thoughts on this, the state of the schools, districts, buildings. This is a professionally done assessment by those that know what they're looking for. And so I think that is absolutely the place to start. Is big circular answer.
So when you guys look at,
One question would be, how long would it take Robert and this group to vet the information after?
Well, I think our plan was to be ready to really talk about it at the next operations committee in September. So, I mean, it's gonna take us a while to really know what's in here.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm
So you're saying, I mean, I think you were saying.
What I'm
we
saying
need to
is,
direct the
let's direct the
to officially-
superintendent to start planning the next
Yeah.
referendum.
Yeah.
We've got a good, we basically.
And if there were if there were a referendum to start.
Yeah, that it's time to start
Yeah.
planning. Whenever that referendum happens, we clearly, what this demonstrates is we don't have enough in 8% to cover our immediate needs. So Dr. Rodriguez, start planning let's start putting together, direct the superintendent to start planning.
and this
Based on
is
this.
just current facilities, so this has nothing to do with improved in facilities or new facilities.
No, it's just a very good data point to
They're
jump
not
on.
in here.
Just talking about, yeah, what would be additional to the addition?
We gotta start somewhere.
We do. So yes,
Okay.
you want to make that motion, Mel?
Ready to go.
So. I know,
Write it up and I'll read it. No, listen, I've read your emails. You are the wordsmith. You are the wordsmith. You are.
I think what you're saying is recommend the full board to direct the superintendent to use the FCA to start investigating referendum projects, or start developing
plans planning for, I like that, planning for a future referendum.
Yes.
Leave it to the layers.
Superintendent to use the FCA to
Begin planning for a future referendum.
That's what Mel said.
And I second Mel's motion.
Yeah. Great job, Mel.
Just smooth tongue.
So will that be rushing a referendum?
Absolutely not.
We're just starting to talk about it.
I hope so.
And it's doing it right
Gotta get it
up.
done.
Rushing it.
Investing it, but, I mean.
We're not setting a date. We're
Trying to
just-
find out what's being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you got it?
Yep.
All right,
Motion to
so,
recommend to full board to direct the superintendent to use the FCA to begin the planning for a future referendum.
Prepositions.
all right. So I'm calling for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
You gotta vote on your own motion now.
I don't have to vote.
You voted yes.
You gotta vote on it and I vote.
You gotta wave the royal hand.
You said yes?
Decide for you.
All right.
I thought I should have came in there.
So Robert, just so I got it clear, we're gonna issue the final one when we get to technical issues with the roofing resolved, and then we'll push that out. Do you want that before? I mean, I'm looking at a time frame. I didn't catch the time frame.
We'll talk. Yeah, as soon as you get it together, we'll print out the books and make them available to the board members. So, just as soon as we can get it together. If we can have it Tuesday, that might be the easiest way, because I can bring them to the board meeting. So if you want a deadline, I'll say by next Monday.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike's still on.
You asked for a deadline, don't have. But yes, we can talk.
So Robert, chemical, is that HVAC?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's what is included in there.
Here, all right, so future topics. We could have a couple of future topics.
And Earl asked me to add one for future topic. This discussion of maintenance. Oh, it's still on here?
He's still there.
Oh, Earl?
It's being checked out.
There's a discussion of maintenance. In school. Oh, there you are. What you were called about a future topic for operation?
Yeah, I would like to have the custodial contractor come to us to the next meeting, because there are some issues that people are having, and they keep calling me every day. And so I want to find out what is going on.
Is that Ed Miller? Or is that me?
No, that's Ed Miller is maintenance. So that's Curtis. Bennett.
So just for clarification, the next meeting is August 17th, but that is an HR meeting.
Right, we're talking about September
So,
operations, our standard meeting.
So for other people who didn't know, because like Earl was thinking the next meeting, so because we have on the calendar, they see all the operation meetings, so when they say next meeting, they're thinking.
So we'll take there's 2 more meetings.
Correct.
One, August 17th is going to be HR focused.
Yes.
And then we are having August
22nd.
22nd, a Monday.
Title IX.
You know what? We got a problem with the Public Facilities Committee meeting. If we decide to go to that.
It's at 4:00.
Yeah, and Public Facilities is at 5?
I want to say it's in the middle of the afternoon. It's like
I was
3.
thinking it was earlier,
I think
like
it's
2 or 3. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can see what happens with that joint meeting and go from there. That's just for Title IX, and I think that's
That
only
was just-
cartilage.
August
Yeah.
22nd is just.
Right,
Just
and that
that.
was at 4:00,
Right.
or we can make it later if you want to do the facilities. So like if we want to start that at 5:00, if the public facilities meeting is like at 2, then we can
So
start
hopefully
this
we'll
one
have-
at 5.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have a meeting with public facilities before that. We can decide kind of, because we've got another meeting before that one, so we'll just put a pin in that one.
So the next operations, I have the 17th at 4:00.
Yeah.
That's sharp. There's one for the 22nd. Are we gonna keep it at 4, or do you wanna move it to 5? Because you're going to county council. Move it to 5.
We may go to county council.
You may go to county
To the
council.
meeting.
So then our next regularly scheduled operations committee meeting would be September 14th.
Okay.
Are we doing future topics?
Yeah, we're doing future topic.
You can be done?
No, we're not done. We just started.
And I was gonna say, y'all getting meeting dates before future topics, I was just wondering.
Just being clear that as we talk about future topics, it's not for next week, even though we have a meeting next week, it'll be for the September
It'd
meeting.
be for the September 14th meeting.
Yeah, did you have something you wanted to put on future topics?
You were, I thought you already knew about, you were, I thought you already notated it.
The alternative schools?
Yes.
Okay, so that brings up a discussion I'd like to have on this committee real quick. That alternative schools belongs to academic committee as far as I'm concerned. It is assignment to schools and has nothing to do with operations or facilities. What I think we should, I don't know if this is appropriate, and David's not on to let us know, but there's been a lot of discussion about some of these ARs for student services should really be under academics.
I would recommend to the full board.
Add that steps, didn't
No, we have to have, I think we have to make it formal.
No,
We
we
never
had a
had a motion.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought if that general area comes up under under Dr. White. Dr. White is a part of this right here, and so.
Dr. White reports now to Mary Stratus.
Oh, no, she does, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
She reports to Atlas.
Right.
Yeah, but a lot of her, is
So,
kind of
when we
that
had
operation.
in the process, in the prior practice, when we had that, then those we still, but those, and we have vetted those issues in operations, to my knowledge prior to this, right?
So therefore, I'm making a motion to recommend to the full board that student services not report to, be liaised with, liaisoned with academic committee. Because you're our liaison. It's not like you report or we, so is that a word?
Dr. Stratus is a liaison, the academic, Robert's liaison with operations.
Right.
So the other suggestion, in the past practice, student services was its own committee. Because it did not fall up under HR operations or whatever. It was its own committee, and that student services met when they had student service issues. So
Might be a good idea.
I'm still gonna make a motion to recommend that it liaison
Be a liaison with academic committee.
academics, because I think we have so many committees. And some of the stuff we talked about today with right choices, I truly believe it aligns very well with student academics. We talked about getting their education while they're, that's academic.
It's assignment to schools.
Right.
Isn't IS 60 instructional services 60?
Yes, IS.
So, I mean, the AR we reviewed today was in instructional services, so.
OS.
And then academics can decide if they want to, make it its own committee.
Is
So
there a
is there a
second?
second for that motion?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. No pressure.
Yeah, I'll second it if you want to.
You're on academics too.
Yeah.
You get it either way.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to say
It's the same. So no pressure. Did you want to second it or?
Yeah.
You said, okay.
That is always the goal, rarely achieved.
Motion to recommend to the full board that student services be liaison with academic committee.
Become affiliated.
Can you explain that motion?
Liaison.
Please.
A liaison, switch allegiance. Yeah, liaison's a noun, so become.
Be aligned.
That's good, yeah. Assigned to?
Assigned
to.
Yeah, let's assign.
Either way, that's good. Let's,
That sounds more
we
definitive.
want to make it more clear.
Assigned to
Yeah.
academic committee.
All right, well, let's go to one more things.
Clear.
Yeah.
Liaison.
Is that a unanimous vote?
Yeah, wait, we haven't voted yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a future.
Okay, so calling the vote, we're good there now?
Motion to recommend to the full board that student services be assigned to the academic committee.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Mel waved his hand graciously in the direction of the motion,
Okay.
indicating assent. All right, so we're going to put your alternative schools on the operations committee meeting unless that motion fails or carries, and then we will add it to academics next meeting. But it is duly noted, it'll be reported to the full board. And then let's see, I feel like there was something else. Custodians, we're gonna have the final call from the FCA.
Yeah.
Man, I felt like there, but we have time.
I know there's something else too that I can't think of.
It'll come up, it will come to us and we can email.
Well, do we have anything about the Robert Smalls, the easement for WK Austin? Do we have any new information about that? So that's a future topic, right?
Well, but they have to come to that.
Right, so.
They haven't. Yeah, they haven't reached out. They haven't reached out. I've actually sent them email asking what they're, and I've gotten.
Nothing was, okay, all right.
So,
Well, we've got a month, so if other things come up, just email and ask.
and we also have that easement at Shanklin, Beaufort, Jasper that
The water
I thought they were gonna do it. And I told them the best time to be summer, they kind
Okay.
of disappeared. So,
Same like the paving, always vanished.
yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna say, especially for this 25, that's it for future topics right now. Feel free to email. What I do need to make sure is that the agenda for the 17th will have the compensation analysis, a agenda item of sick leave, agenda item of substitute pay.
Right. Those are the good things.
And also, can you add to that also as well as bus drivers, assistants, actually, that's the task I should have that, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it should, okay.
Yeah.
And if questions come up, we can address it. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we just need a motion to adjourn. So you gotta say it for him. A second. All in favor, we're done.
Okay, no, okay.